there, I'm Drew Parks with Everyday Moodlings, and this is our Tuesday challenge video. This Tuesday our challenge was working with borders. So that could have been border dies, border stamps, border stencils, or so on. Whenever I think of borders, I always think about creative memories, because they always had, in those old idea books that they did, they always had so many borders in them that you could hand make. And in fact, along the way, I think I had other idea books that were just totally devoted to borders. So you would do a border on the sides of your page, and for creative memories, it would most likely be a two-page spread, and then you would fill that in with pictures. So the borders would really be, in some cases, your only decorations on the pages. So it always reminds me of that, and as I got ready to figure out what I was going to do this week, I thought, well, I definitely don't want to use borders that way. So I am going to be using some border stamps. These are actually stitching stamps. So these are one of my favorite stamps. Normally I try to pull out something I haven't really used before, but as I went through the process this week of deciding what I wanted to do, I just wasn't running across a good match. So I stuck with my border stamps, these stitching ones, but I did pull out these mixed media stamps, and this particular one, this splotch one, I have not used before. So that is good. We're also going to be doing some hearts. I know Valentine's Day has come and gone, but I still felt like I had one last heart in me. So we're going to use this border heart. I'm going to actually cut it apart, but that's what we're going to be using. And we're going to be making an ATC card for my project inspiration board, but anything I'm doing here could be done on a card or a tag or on a larger format, a scrapbook page. So I have done some of my pieces already. So this was another border stamp I had that actually is a text one. It reminds me a little bit of some washi tape I have. So I already did that. And actually, I don't think I'd ever used that one before either, so that's cool. And I cut it out, and then I have just a really simple, a couple of words that I wanted to put on there, which are called Beautiful Heart. Now, I went ahead and embossed these with black embossing powder, and I colored them in using distressed ink and a water pen so that it gives more of a watercolor look, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. But first, we're going to start with our background. And we're going to do, I'm working with watercolor paper today, and we're going to do a little bit of water spraying on here to get our images to kind of blur or bleed onto my paper a little bit. So I'm just using distressed ink. To do this technique, you will need to have a water-soluble ink. So you can't do this with permanent ink. It doesn't work that way. And to protect my work surface, or just for easy cleanup really, I'm going to go ahead and put some paper underneath my ATC. Just makes the video go faster. Okay, so my stamping is done. Now I'm going to lightly spray this with water. What I'm trying to do is to get it to wick, so that we've blurred the lines a little bit of our work. You can also go in with like a water pen if you want more specific control. I'm just tapping off some of the excess water and getting it to run a little bit more. This is going to give me more of a watercolory look to it, which is what I'm going for here. So, okay, so I need to clean up a little bit. And we're going to let this kind of set off to dry. Okay, while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and emboss our hearts and do a little coloring around them. So I'm going to use some white embossing powder. I'm using the same watercolor paper as I did for my background. And I'm actually using white pigment ink for my hearts. It's pretty thick. I like to use this when using white embossing powder because it kind of fills in the gaps just in case I don't get good, really super good coverage with my embossing powder. It's like a bit of an insurance policy. Now my piece was not quite long enough to get that bottom heart, but that's okay because I think I'm mostly using the top two. I think I'm going to cut them out into squares after I color them. So I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss these real quick, or heat set them with my heat gun. Okay, so my hearts are heat set. Now I want to go ahead and color my strip, and I am using some aged mahogany, and I'm going to use a water pen to kind of pick it up and give it more of a watercolory look. And that's a little dark, so I think I'll, and we got kind of a big area, so I'm going to actually get a watercolor brush. Oh, now it's watered down just a little too much for my taste. Great thing about watercolors, of course, is, and these are not actual watercolors, but working with something like a watercolor or a water-soluble ink, is that you can really go back while it's still wet and add in more color if you like. Make sure always, if you've gotten a watercolor paintbrush with color on it, that you go ahead and make sure that gets cleaned as soon as possible so you can get all the color out of the bristles. Okay, so we've got them all done, and I felt like with that first go of the color, it was just too uniform. I wanted it to have a little texture to it, so I just sprayed it with a little water and then daubed up the water. It gives it a more of a splattered look. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these apart real quick, and then we're going to get them down to size. Okay, so we have our hearts done. I kind of played around with them, and 1.25 inches seemed to be about right, but they still don't feel to me like they're working with this background. So I need to pull in some blue. You can see our background is done now, and really got some nice color movement there. That's one of the things I love about working with a water-soluble ink. You can get the color to move around in really unusual and unpredictable ways. So I'm sketching around these hearts real quick. If you watched any of my videos, then you know I have a slight addiction to sketching around things. I love how when you do something like that over and over again, then when you don't do it, it feels like the piece is not finished. Now I'm just going to do a little blue edging here because that's going to pull the blue from the background and pull these two pieces together a little bit better. And in fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of edging here as well. I love how watercolor paper accepts ink. Totally different from cardstock, so if you've never used it before, it's a fun paper to work with. So now I know I'm going to lift these up off of here, and I know I want to integrate our last two pieces here. So haven't yet decided how that's all going to come together. But because, you know, often when I work on a tag, I don't care if things go over the edge, but I can't really do that here because this is going to go into my ATC board, my holders, and so I need it to be more precise than that. Okay, so I have a good idea of what I want to do there. Let's go ahead and lay these pieces down. And you can see I've added the sentiment on there too. Originally I thought I might put the sentiment over here, but then I just decided it worked fine on the hearts themselves. And to kind of pull this together still a little bit more, I'm going to put just a few touches of this yellow. Not much. And of course it won't look as yellow because it's blending with the blue. Actually, it's kind of an orange yellow, and not super orangey. This is Wild Honey. The other color I use, the blue is Faded Jeans. So there's our ATC using border stamps. I got two border stamps in there, the stitching one as well as this text one behind my hearts. And actually the heart stamp itself is a border stamp. I just happened to cut it apart and use the pieces rather than the whole. So if you have any questions about anything I did here, please be sure to let me know. I hope you pull out your borders and create something fun. And be sure to let us know what it is that you created. You can always post a link in the comment section of this blog post. If you're on YouTube when you see this, there will be a link to the blog. You can also join our Facebook group and post your work there. So we would love to see it. We would love to stop by and give you a little blog love when you post it. So let us know what you do. Until next week, I'm your host at Everyday Moodlings, Drury Parks.